Hey guys, it's Vlad here. Happy Friday. I'm gonna call this Freedom Friday for today's theme. This is part 8 of my live streams discussing current situation and CV19. And what a day is today with quite a few new developments, and that's pretty much like every day with new stuff that government is doing. And definitely not changing the stand, not changing the agenda that all levels of the government is pushing on us Canadians, at the federal level, at the provincial level, at the municipal level. So I'll be discussing some of the current developments, and I definitely want to discuss what I can see as a actually very premeditated stand and actions that, especially the federal government, been going on. And what I'll do is I'll post different links into the description or into the caption for this live stream after I do it. Give me a little bit later till today. And I'm going to post all the different links to the articles, to the videos that I'll be talking about today. So then I always encourage people not to take my word 100%, but be educated. Take the time to learn the information, take the time to understand and use critical thinking. And maybe let me just mention that again. I really believe that we've been subjected to indoctrination on all the levels of the government, including the so-called public health within the quotation marks experts, who definitely set on pushing a specific agenda. And I will be discussing, from my perspective and quite a few other people, how that agenda got created and who's really behind it, among many other people. So let's talk about the history in itself. I think the best way to see what can be going forward is actually looking back. And we have a lot of examples in the history to see how people behave. We have a lot of examples in the history to see how the government behaves. And the best examples most of the time for future behavior is past behavior from the general public as well as the government officials. So the first thing I want to say is that we definitely have enough examples of the government trying to create a dictatorship environment. We have a lot of examples of those. And it always starts with a little bit of tweaking the freedoms and other things that people can do. And I'm sure we've seen plenty of that happening in the last couple of months now. And again, not just in Canada, around other countries. Spain is actually one of the strictest measures to this day, where people are subjected to extreme measures in terms of lockdown, are completely unnecessary. And so we have a lot of examples of that. The other example that I want people to really think about in terms of history and comparing to the current situation and current examples that we can see on the streets is wearing masks. People had a lot of different, not people, but a lot of officials had a lot of different changing in terms of the mask. You should wear the mask, you shouldn't wear the mask, and I'm not going to talk about that per se. Besides that, really the only real reason for people to wear the mask is a surgical mask specifically, is when you do the surgeries, so you actually don't infect the person that you do the surgery on. That's why when people go into the surgeries, they wear the full gown and the mask themselves. Not that they shouldn't get infected, is that they don't want to infect the person that they're making a surgery on. So for anybody who thinks that you wearing the mask will protect you from getting infected is nonsense, because it's really, if you are sick, and you then definitely should wear the mask so you limit the amount of spread. So anyone who's healthy wearing a mask is actually making you unhealthy, because now you're not able to breathe properly. And I've talked to a lot of people that have different health conditions, and wearing a mask all the time is actually making things worse for those people in terms of their health status. So that would be one thing to address. But specifically in terms of the history, and again, I'm not going to take credit for it. I saw that at one of my friends' page. Think where in the history before people were subjected to have something covering their mouth. And the mask would be primarily over their mouth and the part of the face covering the mouth. Well, there were slaves. So slaves in the history, in the past, were subjected to wearing something to cover their mouth. So when we have the whole indoctrination going on for people to wear the masks all the time, no matter where they are, guess what kind of environment that is created for the people that walking around those people, whether you wearing a mask or not, you seeing so many people wearing a mask, definitely it's a psychological warfare that's going on right there. So if you don't want to be a slave, and if you don't want, if you are well and healthy, wearing a mask outside is definitely something you should think twice about. Again, I'm not my place to tell you, but I'm just giving you some perspective. I'm giving you something to think about, so-called food for thought, right? So something for you to think about would be that. In terms of I'm gonna, I guess, talk about it into 3 stages, and then I'm gonna kind of go back in terms of discussing the premeditative perspective that I developed actually a couple of weeks ago now. So at a federal level, we have, obviously our Prime Minister Trudeau, the Liberal Party, that's actually a minority government. They acting themselves as a dictatorship at this point, even passing a law today. Whether you're for guns or against guns, that's not really the point. The point that there was not done a democratic process passing that law at all. So, that's something, again, just to think about, that in democracy you would have a debate and pass legislation in that form. So the way it was done today was definitely undemocratic. It does not matter whether you agree with what was done or not, just to give you perspective. And if one thing was able to be passed this way, anything else can be done exactly the same way. And now I'm talking about actually people's freedom and mandatory vaccination being put on us without any even discussion in the parliament. So this is really something for everybody to think about, that today's legislation, regardless whether you agree with it or not, is a very, very dangerous example of the stand that this government is taking at the federal level. At the provincial level, I want to discuss specifically Ontario, where I'm from, and there's an article, again, that I'm going to post the link in the description here, where they discussing that in Ontario, they were able to create over 10,000 beds needed for people with CV19, and less than 10% of those beds are occupied as of today. So think about a huge, huge, huge waste of resources, and again, how really not as serious as we've been believed and faked into believing, that this virus is so crazy, so many people got infected and so many people are going to die. And yes, people are getting infected, and yes, people are dying, but people are dying because at the same time we had over 52,000 necessary hospital procedures canceled. Guys, I just really want you to grasp the number. Over 52,000 procedures in Ontario alone have been cancelled because of the measures of the current government at the federal, at the Ontario level, at provincial level, at the municipal level. That's insane amount of lives that getting affected currently. People are currently dying again, and it's unfortunate, and I'm not surprised that not as much coming out in the media actually discussing all these lives being affected and people are dying, just because I'm sure it's being suppressed. There's just a little bit here, there's definitely a spike in the mental health. Nobody's really talking about actual suicide rates spiking. I'm sure there's tons of people, unfortunately, taking extreme measures in that. There was just one small article about, possibly 35 people dying from heart disease complications because they couldn't get proper medical hospital attention. I'm sure there's a lot more. And again, the article from yesterday, even the title was misleading. I actually read the article. I'm like, why is this title of this article, the measures of the government protecting the health, hurting the economy? And 100% they do. But when you actually read the article, and it says in the article that less than 10% of created capacity for the CV19 is not even being used. And at the same time, we have over 52,000 necessary hospital procedures that are being canceled. Guys, I'm not talking about somebody getting a nose job. I'm talking about serious medical conditions people not able to get access to. That's insane. And still today, after this article came out yesterday, and I'm sure somebody showed that to our health minister and our premier, the real team yahoos, I'm going to call them, because those are the people are freaking jokers at this point. They're completely discrediting the lives of people that are being affected in such a horrendous way with all these measures, and they're not backing down. and it's insane. So today, Doc finally announced that there's going to be a slow business opening, and the opening, the garden centers a little bit, and people can mow their lawn. It's a joke. Like, we in 2 months of this completely unjustified and unnecessary lockdown, you can look at the real data. The capacity is not there. You shouldn't even pay any attention to trying to control the spread of the virus. The virus is continuing to spread. Whoever thinks the virus is not spreading because majority of people sitting down is delusional. Okay, guys? Whoever is going outside to work at Amazon, to work at the Walmart, to work at Costco, to work at TTC, they all getting infected, and then going home and they forced to sit with other family members in confined space, and this is actually how the virus spreads. Okay, in a couple of instances, even our doctor Davila was saying that actually outside the virus has a very, very small, almost non-existent chance to spread for people by passing each other, briefly. She actually said it, it's amazing that, and at the same time, right away, she says, no, everybody should stay inside. When you're staying inside with other people, the virus is continuing to spread. The virus is continuing to infect and worsen conditions for other people. And again, at the same time, staying home is not healthy. And again, the Dr. Davila 2 days ago actually saying word for word, staying home is healthy. And somebody said, well, she meant something else. I don't care what she meant. I care what she said. She said staying home is healthy, and it's not, right? And staying at home actually continues the spread, continues people getting infected, and this is something that should be really considered by people that actually can think for themselves. And continue with the city conversation, City of Toronto, Davila today, proudly makes a statement that she considers all of us her patients. And I'm like, no, I'm not your patient. And your so-called medical and health result is ridiculous. And unfortunately, a lot of people not able to have the same education that I was able to get, and a lot of people did not spend years and years studying nutrition and wellness and health. And yes, I don't have a medical degree. I don't have to have a medical degree to understand that staying home is actually unhealthy, considering everything else I can discuss with people individually. And going back to the federal level, when somebody asked today, Dr. Tam at the press conference, and I'm really had enough. Like, I watched every single briefing for a while, and at this point, I had enough of these jokers. The top doctor in our country that's guiding the policies for all Canadians, when the journalist actually asks her, how come the children are not as susceptible to this virus? Her answer was, she doesn't know. I'm not a doctor, but I can make a basic understanding that children are a healthier population than adults. Children don't have pre-existing conditions in majority like adults do, because the majority of conditions having lifestyle related: diabetes, cancer, heart disease, suppressed immune system because of all those other conditions, being overweight. That's why the majority are older population are at risk, because that's what happens. Kids, they're supposed to have a weak immune system, so they're supposed to get infected even easier by this virus. They're not. They're not, because this virus actually affects older population because they have suppressed immune system, because of their lifestyle, because of the other health conditions that they have. And that's why we have 80-90% of people who are dying from this are elderly population. There's no reason at all for people who are healthy, who has a relatively strong immune system, to be shut down at home for the last 2 months and actually getting unhealthier and weaker. And yes, like they're saying that, if we let everybody out, we might have a second wave. 100%, you're going to have definitely spike in not just CV19 situation and all the viruses, because people are unhealthy sitting at home for the last 2 months. So, but that's something that needs to happen, because the longer we're cooped inside, the worse the conditions for everybody's going to get. That's not addressed at all at the federal, at the provincial, or at our municipal level. And boy, oh boy, let me talk about the City of Toronto. So yesterday day, but I saw that at night, they had a city council vote and was unanimously voted for our amazing Mayor Tory, to have a reign of this pandemic until it's declared clear. So he literally gave himself powers indefinitely to have the power that he has right now until the pandemic's been cleared, which is nothing. This is never going away. We're always going to live with this virus. So yesterday, the city vote gave a power to our mayor to have the power over the people of Toronto. Almost 3 million people of Toronto, he has the power indefinitely, because the pandemic will never be clear, guys. I really want everybody to pay attention. This virus will never go away. All the efforts at all the federal, provincial, and municipal levels of the government all across Canada been a total waste trying to contain the spread. Okay, and I'm going to talk about this right now next. But before I do, just want to again talk about City of Toronto. Is like I said, the mayor got the power, and then today he announced that he's canceling the celebration for our Canada Day. Okay, today is May 1st, and by the way, happy May 1st, everyone. Okay, for someone who's outside of the Western world, we actually know this day very well. May 1st, especially for people from all the USSR, is a Labor Day movement. It's actually, and pretty much all around the world except the Western world, it's considered to be a Labor Day, a People Day. So, I guess, again, no coincidence, me doing this part 8 and actually discussing everything that I discussed now and I'm going to do in a second. This day is very significant because this is the day where people rose up and said, enough is enough, okay? We the people will open our country. And all these freaking politicians that definitely have all the interest at hand, except the public health, except the Canadians, definitely have to go. All of them. Trudeau, Ford, Tory. I'm going to talk about the jurisdiction that I personally live. I didn't have time to even look at everybody else, but it's pretty messy out there, all right? The only province that I see so far standing in ground a little bit is Quebec, but again, I don't want to make any assumptions just yet. So Tory canceled the Canada Day celebration as of today. That's 2 months from now, guys. 2 months from now. And let me tell you something very, very important, that this was planned all from the beginning. The only thing that I want to thank Mayor Tory from today is actually doing it today. And stop feeding us, stop, what we call this, spoon feeding me this bullshit week by week. Thank you for telling me 2 months ahead that we're not going to have a Canada Day in Toronto. And if we would be, it's because it's going to be up to me. I'm going to do everything in my power to change that. All right? Because enough is enough. This all scientific expert data is backed by Bill Gates and the team. And there is no correlation between people being inside and us not having a lot of cases. You're just not testing everyone who had this virus, because at this point I wouldn't even suggest for people to get tested unless they really feel unhealthy, because then you're going to have whatever system you're going to have there. So the fact that we have countries that had zero lockdown and schools are open except the universities, and the whole country is not engulfed with this virus and people are not dying on the streets after 3 months, in Sweden and Japan, and Sweden is not even discussed by our governments, is totally disgusting. It's totally irresponsible behavior. And again, I'm not surprised, because then it just shows the agenda that they're trying to push. This is not about looking at all the data out there. This is 100% selecting things that fits the narrative for them, that fits the agenda that they're trying to impose on us. And on this note, let me talk to you a little bit how I personally connected the dots 2 weeks ago, guys. And few more things that came out this week in the news, again, just back that up a little bit more. And I'm going to share again different links for people to do their own research later today, not right now once I finish this. So, definitely come back and check this live stream with additional links, and then you can click on them and see exactly what I'm talking about. And again, definitely share it with other people who you feel can benefit from a little bit alternative perspective to this current agenda being pushed on us. So whoever lives in Canada probably remembers a little bit the huge scandal that we actually had going on in Canada, which actually involved our Prime Minister of Canada. And It's definitely not something lightly when you have ethics commission, charging Trudeau violated federal conflict of interest. So a Canadian ethics commissioner has said that Premier Prime Minister Justin Trudeau violated federal conflict of interest. Okay, guys. So if you want to think that you're going to trust somebody at that level and taking their word for heart and thinking they have the best interest in mind, this is just one small example to show you that this person unfortunately is very shady and trying to influence the outcome in his favor. And the reason why I bring this up is actually not even just to try to show you the character of the person leading the whole country and saying that we should take that person word as a fact. So the reason why I bring that up is because only few ministers from the caucus of our prime minister actually stood against him and called him out. And one of those people was actually Jane, where's her name? So we had a health minister, 2 health ministers ago, and she actually is a physician, and she was one of the only few people that actually resisted and called our prime minister bullshit, so to speak. And her name is Jane Philpott. So Jane Philpott is a physician, and she was a health minister of Canada, not before the current one, the one before that. And she was one of the only few people at our federal government that actually called our prime minister out, and then she resigned eventually. She went away. So, and she actually went to work at the front line right now in the hospitals and everything, fighting this virus. Again, a real virus, a real situation. People are getting affected. Okay, so the reason why I bring her up is because she probably would have been the perfect person to be health minister today, actually leading the country out of this total mess. Okay, but not that she wasn't even in the minister's department. She was not even part of the government anymore as of last year. To me, that's not a coincidence. Now, the biggest thing that I want you to understand in terms of the health minister and the people that actually are ruling our country, our actual health minister, and I discussed this before, she is a graphic designer by education. And again, I personally don't want to hold anything against her, but to have a graphic designer as a health minister for 37 million people is a little bit not just ironic, it's unacceptable, irresponsible. And not just that, even the deputy health minister, so the person that's covering her bases and does everything else, is also has nothing to do with doctor or physician or anything else. He's a doctor, he has a PhD, and again, I don't look at it as a coincidence, because I'm sure when people see a DR, they think the person is a doctor. But actually, I digged a little bit further. So deputy health minister of our country has a PhD in geology, guys, okay, in stones. And I'm sure very smart and intelligent person, but again, not a person to be second in charge of our health of this country and have no education at all. So whoever goes out and questions my ability to talk about this subject, please stop, okay? We have a health minister and deputy health minister, 0 education, comparing to me at least, all right? Now, both of those people were actually appointed to this position last year, guys. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think not, all right? Last year, before all this mess has started, we have 2 people that's supposed to protect the health of this country, have nothing to do with health and education and their work before, all right? Now, we have Dr. Tam, our Chief Public Health Officer, health, big quotation marks, right? Leading the whole agenda, how to deal with this pandemic. So let me give you a little bit perspective on her. And this has nothing to do with racism, how people like to discredit, or anything else that they're talking about her character. I'm going to talk about actual thing that I've seen her saying. And the memos, I'm going to share the videos to the memos that people can see for themselves, okay? So, first of all, Dr. Tam was advised in a private memo on January 15. On January 15, Dr. Tam was advised that this virus actually has person-to-person transmission, okay? So in other words, one person can infect the other person. All right. She knew about this January 15th of this year, guys. Okay. 2 weeks later, she makes a statement that this virus has nothing to do with person-to-person transmission. How's that possible? A person that's supposed to be leading public health policies and agenda and supposedly helping the health ministers, they have no education in this field, saying things that are 100% wrong and actually extremely dangerous, guys. It's right there. Again, I'll share the link to the videos that discusses the actual memos, guys, all right? So this is how I see this has happened at the basic level, guys. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit basic. So this virus, definitely, there's a lot of different things out there, but from a lot of people that are smart and educated and also scientists and experts, this virus was made in a lab, okay? This virus is actually patented. This virus has a patent on it. How can you patent something that came from the bad guys? Just think about it. Just put two and two together. This has nothing to do with theories, okay? It has a patent. How can you patent something that comes from the bad if it comes from nature, all right? So this came from the lab. The Fauci lifted the moratorium, up to $7 million was transferred to that lab by US government to do all this research and create this bullshit situation for the world. Okay, guys? And Dr. Tam has a lot of connections to China, but I'm not even going to discuss that. Forget about her connection to China, where that's true or not even going to mention that anymore. But she was advised that this virus can spread. She said no 2 weeks later. I think that was definitely done on purpose to allow the spread of this virus in our country. Okay, when our health minister, graphic designer, made a statement a little bit after, I think it was January, February, that we should definitely not close our borders because it's not really, possible to do, and it's definitely not necessary. That was definitely done on purpose to continue allow people coming into this country and continue the virus to be spread. Okay, and I really think if we had a different health minister who actually understands the health and actually has education in health and possibly practicing physician, like the two ministers that we had before that I already mentioned, Jane Philpott, I'm sure she would have questioned the measures, and I'm sure she would have questioned the agenda that's currently been created for all Canada, but unfortunately she wasn't a part of the Canada government anymore. I don't think that was a coincidence. So Dr. Tam misled the country, misled the policies. The health minister is not able to question or maybe adjust the approach. She actually colluded in that behavior, and that's how the virus allowed to spread in the country. So all the measures that were implemented at the end of March, trying to contain the spread, again, are completely unnecessary and useless because the virus already spread in our country for 2 months. Okay, guys? Now, what they did, though, is they implemented those measures, and now they forced everybody to sit together. And actually, if people possibly maybe would have been in the same house at the same time, because people work. Like I'm sure a lot of Canadians, you guys realize, one person works at night, one person works in the morning. So a lot of people wouldn't even see each other for a while because even though they lived in the same place, they were never at the same place at the same time. Now, because of the policies of the government, you're actually forcing people to stay together. One person supposedly had the virus, and now he's sitting at the same time with other people. Guess what? That's how the whole thing gets spread. Again, the majority of spread of this virus happened in confined places, in our retirement homes, long-term care homes, in prisons, and homeless population. Those are the three categories of people that should have been protected back from January, guys. All the policies that the government waited till end of April to implement is exactly what they should have done back in January in terms of long-term care homes, in terms of homeless population, in terms of prisons. And just as a perspective, guys, if we all supposed to be staying inside because that's how we contain the virus spread, why do you release violent offenders? Aren't they already inside? Just give them the mask and keep them inside. Like, are you kidding me? You're releasing violent offenders because staying inside for them is not the right approach, but all the healthy people that can be outside supposed to stay. That doesn't make any sense, guys. Like, what theories are this? This is common sense. Unfortunately, it's not common practice. And again, I don't blame a lot of people, because I understand it can be very scary and anxious to think that your government is deliberately doing all this behavior. But I saw this, when I saw this over a month ago, and I saw all the things that gonna come out of this, and a lot of people were laughing at me like, what food shortage supplies are you talking about? I have all the chicken and potatoes I can eat. Well, guess what? It took a month for the news now to come out that we actually gonna have a food shortage, okay? What are you talking about, all the mental health and depression? You know, everybody's okay, we sit at home during the winter, no problem. Well, guess what? It took a month for all the news come out that we have a huge spike in mental health crisis and suicide and in abuse situation. A lot of kids, the only outlet and only space, safe space the kids had out of home is actually school, guys. Like, it's insane that a lot of teachers haven't heard from kids that they knew were in a very serious and dangerous situation. And you can't even call the police a lot of times, because what are you going to happen? Like, it's a crazy situation in terms of that. And I saw that over a month ago, and yes, the information is coming now, but we've been already in this nonsense, unjustified, and actually very harmful state for this is like 2 months now almost. So what I was going to say also is, boy, oh boy, oh boy. So at this point, the other thing I'm going to share, and I think I already shared it as a description for this coming live, but I'm going to share it. There's a really good video showing how Bill Gates actually created his stature that he has now of a philanthropist and a good person in the world. And I remember beginning of this year, everyone saying, you know, have you seen the Netflix documentary about Bill Gates and whatever? And for whatever reason, I actually didn't want to watch that thing. And I guess maybe I was kind of, you know, tuned into the situation of this, but whatever. So, like, do you think it's a coincidence that we have a Netflix documentary coming out, first about all the viruses, and then how good the Bill Gates is and how good a philanthropist he is? Like, there's no coincidence, guys, here. Like, every single thing been planned. And I'm going to say a couple more how planned this been from Bill Gates' stand, but you can definitely watch. It's a good 25 minutes description exactly the history of Bill Gates. You can skip maybe the beginning part. I'll timestamp it exactly where the person talks about all the philanthropical things that Bill Gates have been involved, which has actually all been to create more power, to create more influence in the health, and actually make more money. People think that he's giving a lot of money. He's making a lot of money. It has nothing to do with giving goods to people, but it's all about creating the persona that people wouldn't even question what he's doing is shady. It's a standard playbook. Again, in that documentary, there's a good example exactly who've done this before. This all has been created from a very long time, guys. This all, again, a lot of people think, you know, this is whatever theories, and I lived through everything else before, so this is just one more unsubstantiated and crazy thing that people blowing out of proportion. Guys, trust me, I also lived through all the things before the Y2K and 2012 and whatever else in between. This one is real in terms of all those things connect the dots, and you can see how intense the censorship got even in the last month. Like, things getting pulled off from YouTube, from Facebook, people get discredited all the time. Actual scientists and doctors who actually want to speak the truth, they immediately discredited and silenced. Why can't we have a healthy debate with those people? Like the Nobel Prize laureate from France 3 weeks ago did his study and said that this was created in a lab. And one of the publications haven't even quoted him being a Nobel laureate doctor, just says some crazy French doctor, whatever. So in terms of Bill Gates, like, there's a patent on a virus, there's a patent on a chip, there's a patent on the currency. Like, it's all connected. And again, considering the censorship that's going on with Facebook and everything else, and things get pulled away from all those media, and people can say, well, it's a private company. No, it's a public utility. Like, we use those platforms to share information, and nothing that can be harmful besides now calling people to rise and defend their freedom and defend their choice, guys. So on that note, definitely there's going to be a protest tomorrow in Toronto at 12 o'clock at Queen's Park. I'll be there. A lot of other people will be there. I really going to ask you, if you feel you are healthy and you feel you want to get out and you want to show this government that enough is enough and we're the people going to rise and we're going to open our country, come. Okay, guys? If you want some ideas for the signs, I can message me. I'm going to send you the ideas for the signs. This has nothing to do with haircuts. Whoever thinks that the person with the haircut actually represented our movement is a joke, guys. Again, it's a standard playbook situation. You're going to put somebody with a shitty message and all the media are going to take a picture that one person, I want to open the country because I want my haircut. Has nothing to do with haircut. We want to hear some good slogans? No new normal. Okay, that's going to be one sign. Real data versus fake model. That's another sign. Okay, you want to hear another one? Small business versus Amazon, Walmart, Costco. Do you understand, guys, that this also been one of the biggest wealth heists in the history of humanity? All the small businesses are suppressed. They are forced to go bankrupt. All the bullshit policies created by the government to give some partial rent money so people can stay open later when we may be open later, this stuff, it's a total nonsense. Talking about what we've lived in the past, I lived through SARS in Toronto, okay? Whoever works in hospitality industry from back then actually knows the Winterlicious Festival was created to encourage people to go to the restaurants during SARS, guys. Because back then, at least we had a better government actually thinking properly. But again, I understand the government thinks properly. They just have a perfect specific agenda that they're pushing. But just to give people a perspective from the history again, from the past, that during SARS pandemic, the government and the city created Winterlicious Festival. So people would be encouraged to go and eat in the restaurants, okay? That year, we had one of the biggest music festivals in Downsview Park, guys. Free, huge music festival in Downsview Park during similar SARS epidemic, okay, guys? So canceling the Canada Day, Mr. Tory, you can go to hell, all right? We are refusing, we will rise up, and we're gonna open our country. So whoever wants to come to the protest tomorrow, guys, definitely do. Whoever business wants to open and you feel safe to do that, definitely reach out. We're gonna create some lawyers, we're gonna create petitions, because enough is enough, okay? This virus is real, the risk population is affected, you need to protect those people 100%. We need to live the life, we need to get healthy, and for that, the lockdown must be over immediately. There's no slow trickle opening of the country. And on the same note, the two people that got hired by the city to help open the country, that's $200,000 they're getting paid. Those people in 3 months or whatever is going to take them to help us open the Toronto city, at the Toronto city, guys, the two people going to make over $200,000 in the next 3 months helping in opening our city. You know how you open the city and the country and the province? Open. Whoever feels safe to be outside and open a business, open. Whoever feels safe to go to the restaurant, you can go, all right? If you want to be safe at home, please do so. The government supports everyone who wants to stay at home with all the free iPads and $2,000 a month. Everybody else who's healthy and feels good about going outside should be going outside. We're gonna have a beautiful weekend with a lot of sunshine and fresh air, and people need that to actually be healthy, all right? Anyway, guys, I think we definitely had a good conversation today. Again, I haven't scripted anything. I had a few ideas that I want to touch base. Hopefully get some value out of this. And definitely share this video. Give me a little bit till end of the day to edit the caption to post all the different links for your resources. And enough is enough, all right? No new normal, okay? We will open our country. Love you all. Stay healthy.